What's going on, YouTube? Well, the Anacrusis is finally out. We now have it available for free on Xbox Game Pass and available for purchase on Steam and Epic Game Store for PC. I know a lot of people will probably be jumping on this today or next couple of days, maybe a little bit further down the road. Even more so since it's going to be free on Xbox Game Pass. It's going to be a large player base that's essentially going to be trying this out sooner than later. And that being said, since it is in early access, it's not a lot of those hand-holding tutorials, a lot of things that just aren't really explained to you while you're in the game as of right now before it's going into that launch. Things aren't quite as polished as you'd like to see, but that's what we get with some of these early access games. With that being said, I thought I'd make a video on some 10 beginner tips that are going to help you out through some of these runs. Just give you some of that information that will be beneficial for your playthrough and just make the experience a lot more enjoyable and just give you that background knowledge on certain aspects of the game that'll just help you out later on down the road when you start facing it. But let's get started. Tip number 10, medical stations. Something I didn't even realize existed for the first 2 hours of playing this game. Every single safe room / elevator that you spawn in or end in at any one of the levels has a medical station on the right side of the door opening button. Can't believe I didn't even notice this. One of those moments where you feel like it's so obvious, but at the same time it doesn't exactly show it to you immediately in that first mission. Like I said before, none of those tutorials, but at the same time on that medical station, not only can you use that station to heal up, but occasionally there will be moments where there's 4 different healing kits on it. So get you and your team to grab all those up. You may need those on the run. It's just going to be helpful if you grab those up and just top off that healing for any one of those runs as well. Tip number 9, stasis grenades are going to be your best friend. At least one person on your team should be holding on to at least 2 of these stasis grenades at all time, considering anytime you throw one of these down, it's going to completely slow down any of those common aliens, some of those special aliens, minus the sea urchin, which is something we'll talk about later on in this tip video. But that being said, one of the biggest benefits from the stasis grenade is anytime you face a brute, which is something similar to a tank from Left 4 Dead, deals massive damage, charges in, can fling some of your teammates all around. Other special aliens can grab them up from one of those moments of flinging them around. Could be very detrimental to your team. But with one of these stasis grenades, just pop one down at their feet. You can stun lock them completely, take them down with minimal to no damage taken. Tip number 8. Upgrade stations, something that creates a bit more of a roguelike feel to the game. When it comes to each episode, in each mission, you may come across randomly in different locations. It will always spawn randomly, almost never in the same spot twice, but you'll have available 3 options to upgrade your character, ranging from things like critical hits causing explosions, increases to health, increase to maximum ammo, and some other things like that. We've got some tips later on that'll help you decide which ones of these upgrades can be best in slot for you. Now, say you're kind of like searching all throughout some of these maps, there's going to be a way to tell when one of these is going to be around, and there'll be like a chiming sound in the background. As soon as you hear that, just keep searching in that same area until you get closer and closer to it. Sometimes you'll be able to hear it from a good distance away through some of the walls as well. It's not going to be one of those moments where you just have to pass a doorway. But at the same point, we'll play that sound for you now. As soon as you hear it, just go searching for it. Tip number 7. Recharge stations, or as you may know it, reload stations. Looks like a giant futuristic ashtray to me, but that's me personally. Now, one thing that's great about these recharge stations is they can be infinitely used. Anytime you walk up to it, doesn't matter if you just shot one round, whether or not you just used it as well, you can use it again, completely refill that ammo. Now, that being said, one of those instances where you possibly pushed a little bit further past one of those, just kind of remember where they are. Because with the AI director, they can call in a horde at any time, randomly just start dropping on top of you. You could face a lot of those special aliens, drop a lot of that ammo. And one good thing, also a little side note tip with this is, if you find a weapon on the ground, it's the same weapon that you're holding. As soon as you pick that one up, it'll completely refill your ammo. But if you can't find that, and you possibly don't run into any of those reload stations going forward, as with the AI director, sort of a skill-based difficulty setting, it seems to spawn less of those recharge stations and lots of other equipment as well that you may be trying to find, or possibly just spawn it in obscure locations that you wouldn't find unless you were looking around every corner. In some of those moments, just remember where that last one was if you have enough time to push back to that. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with the pistol, and the pistol is just obviously not the greatest weapon in this game. By far going to be not one that you really enjoy, and at the same time, if you don't have that maximum ammo capacity increased when it comes to the magazines and your ammo, it's going to be a troublesome to work with. Tip number 6, the grabber. Certain type of special alien that is absolutely overpowered. The range on this thing is absurd, and the damage it can deal, I mean, it's life-ending within seconds. It's one of the things that I've got to state inside of this is that if you ever hear one of the NPCs or one of the players themselves say grabber, you're going to need to hunt that thing down as quick as possible. Now, once somebody's already been grabbed up, as you've seen from this footage already, the distance is unreal, and you need to keep checking on some of these people. If you've got voice comms, let them know. I'm trying to let them know right now, but who knows if they're even listening. A lot of the time when I was playing this, didn't seem like too many people had mics. All I heard was one person out of 8 hours of gameplay. Couldn't believe it, but with something like this, as soon as you hear that audio cue that says grabber, and they grab somebody up, you need to go immediately be on top of that, because it's going to quickly down you, and if there's multiples of them, goodness, man, that could be the end of that episode run right there. It is absolutely absurd, most overpowered thing in the game. There's only one other special alien type that is even more terrifying than this, but we'll get into that with a different tip later on in the video. But that being said, if you do have somebody that's gotten grabbed and you can't quite get the angle on that grabber, but they're right next to you, you can use that force push melee, that shield push thing that you have right next to them to pretty much free them from that grapple and then move away and be able to line up your shot and take down that grabber. Instead of possibly trying to line up that shot, letting your teammate go down, take a lot of damage, you want to stop them right there instead of wasting all that time and possibly having them go down and then possibly die while they're grabbing them, and then the thing's just going to grab you. Oh, it's a nightmare. But that being said, anytime you see that, take it down as quick as possible. Don't care if you've got that brute on you, the other stuff, just take it down. Tip number 5. Now this is for my controller players. If you feel like the aim just is a bit off, I mean, I even increased the sensitivity straight away, and it still felt like something was a bit off, and it's due to the fact that there's look acceleration as a separate category for that right stick. Essentially what this does is kind of lag the input for whatever reason. I'm not sure why people want to use this. I don't know who really does. It really irritates me, but as soon as you start pulling over the right, it slowly ramps up to the max speed instead of initially just having that 1-to-1 input ratio where as soon as you even slightly move it, it's immediately starting to turn. So just crank that up to 100 and then, situate that sensitivity on whatever's comfortable for you. But instead of having to deal with that slow wind up and it just feels like lag is what it feels like, and you can't have that free flowing motion, that swift movement, getting on a target as fast as possible. You need to get that done, and then just hit that look sensitivity all the way down to whatever is comfortable for you, and you'll be whipping it onto a lot of these aliens after that. Tip number 4, at some of these upgrade stations you may find an option for something that increases the super ammo, the supercharge extender I believe it's called. This is going to increase the ammo for those shock rifles and laser rifles that you'll find, but what you'll also notice is that when you go out and you find one of those auto turrets on the ground, something you'd assume would be in the grenade slot is actually considered a super weapon. So anytime that you find one of those laying on the ground, generally you'll only pick up one available to drop down later on, but with this super ammo extender, it's actually going to give you 2 instead of just the one that you pick up. So any one auto turret that you find on the ground, if you find 2 of them next to each other, you've got 4 auto turrets right there available for you, especially in some of those moments with some of those holdout missions where you get to the end, they've got a bit of supplies for you, a couple of those auto turrets laying around. If you pick those up, you're going to have double of all the auto turrets available to you and your entire team. And at the same time, in some of those moments when you just want to carry one, you could just drop one down for one of those random hordes and still have another one ready to go for any of those other moments that may come up in the future. It's going to be a huge power play if one person picks up this upgrade. Tip number 3, the best upgrade you could possibly find in any one of these upgrade stations is going to be Grenade Amplifier. This will increase the radius of any grenade you throw. If you find this early on in one of those episodes, you are going to be golden for the rest of that episode. I mean, the sheer increase in radius with this Grenade Amplifier is massive, especially for your Stasis grenade or even just your shield grenade. I mean, you're going to be slowing down entire packs of common infected, any of those other special infected, as well as some of the fire from some of those spawners infected alien things that are just shooting through. You'll notice as it's slowly pushing through there, but it's got that massive dome on it. And as long as you hang behind that, even in an open area, you're going to be able to create a bottleneck for a lot of these common infected and mitigate a lot of that damage you would have taken otherwise. Tip number 2, sea urchins. My goodness. Well, this is probably one of the most terrifying things in the game. Absolutely deadly, and the only thing I could compare it to is the witch from Left 4 Dead. But instead of calling a horde, it is the horde itself. It'll take your teammates out, it'll take you out. Ooh, it'll take just about everything out. Could wipe the whole 4-man run if nobody's really paying attention. The only real way to take care of this type of problem is to use that force pulse or force push that you have as a melee ability. But the guaranteed best way to deal with this is to drop down a shield grenade. It's the only thing that's going to completely protect you against these things. If you have somebody on your team, guaranteed you should have at least one person at least holding one of those shield grenades at all times. All of you bundle up, or whoever it is that shoots them should hit it in the first place. They will start targeting other players, but the first person to shoot it, they'll all cluster on top of that person initially. Then as soon as that person's downed, they'll cluster over that downed body, take them out as quick as possible, or possibly just go to the next target that's available, or possibly shooting at them. By far, one of the funniest, most terrifying things I've seen in games recently. It's like a bunch of spiky beach balls just swarming you at one time, but if you've got one of those shield grenades, you should be good. You should be able to avoid that damage and take things out all around you. They'll still be swarming on top of that shield grenade, but by the end of it, you should be able to take them out fairly easy. And they are relentless. If you leave one or two alive, they'll keep hunting you down until you're down. And tip number 1, one that we all seem to forget from time to time here and there, is just simply stick together. This is a co-op game. It's 4 players. You're going to need to stick together when it comes to certain instances, especially with a horde coming in. If everybody's all spread out, one of those grabbers grabs somebody, the goopers gooped somebody, people are getting thrown around, you're completely disoriented, and nobody's able to kind of hone that fire in on everything that needs to be taken out, or possibly can't throw any of those utilities to really help out the rest of the team, and it could inevitably just destroy the run itself. It's one of those things that, don't go running off on your own. Keep that communication solid. Obviously, you don't need to completely hold each other's hands, but you need a good formation to move forward and make sure that you take the least amount of damage as possible and can take on any situation to the best of your ability with that team. With that being said, that's going to be the end of our tips for any of those beginners coming out here. I've been enjoying the game. If you definitely have Game Pass, obviously this is one of those. If you're just looking in to kind of check out whether or not you want to get into it, you might as well download it, have a good bit of fun, just dip your toes in the water. Obviously, that's the most we can probably do with this game since it is in early access. It's definitely not polished up, but it's definitely more than a demo itself. There's a good bit of replayability as long as you got some friends with you. It's a good time, but at the end of the day, hope this helped you guys. Hope this helps somebody out, and have a good one.